Poor Filipino boy's voice brings everyone to tears. Crying rose. The hall was buzzing with excitement, lights flashing, cameras rolling, and the audience whispering in anticipation. Thousands had gathered to witness yet another round of auditions, where hopefuls dreamed of turning their struggles into triumph. Among them, a small figure stood nervously backstage, a boy, no older than 13, his clothes simple, his slippers worn, his eyes carrying a mix of fear and determination. He was from a small fishing village in the Philippines, a place where the sea gave just enough for survival but never enough for dreams. When his name was called, he stepped onto the stage. The crowd looked at him curiously. His voice was soft when he introduced himself, almost fragile, and many wondered if he could truly handle the pressure. But when the judges asked why he was there, his words pierced the silence. I sing because it is the only thing that kept me strong when life was too hard. I want my voice to reach the people who feel forgotten. The lights dimmed, the first notes of music began, and the boy closed his eyes. His voice rose gently at first, like a whisper carried by the wind. But as he sang, it grew, full of power and emotion, filling the hall with a beauty that could not be denied. It was not just singing, it was storytelling. Every note carried his pain, his hunger, his nights of sleeping on a floor made of bamboo, his mornings of walking barefoot to school with an empty stomach. His voice trembled not from weakness, but from truth. The audience fell silent. A mother in the front row clutched her chest, tears running down her face. One of the judges leaned forward, unable to blink, while another covered her mouth to hide the sob that threatened to escape. The boy sang with every piece of himself, as though the stage was his last chance to prove to the world that he existed. By the time he reached the chorus, the hall was no longer filled with strangers, it was filled with people bound together by his voice, by the raw humanity in his song. Behind that voice was a story that few knew. The boy had grown up in deep poverty. His father, a fisherman, had been lost at sea during a storm when the boy was just 7. His mother, left alone with 3 children, worked endlessly washing clothes for neighbors, selling vegetables at the market, and sometimes skipping meals so her children could eat. The boy often sang to his younger siblings at night, using his voice to calm their hunger and fears. Music was his only gift, one that had given his family moments of peace when the world offered none. But chasing a dream had not been easy. There were days he wanted to give up, days when classmates mocked him for being poor, for having torn shoes, for daring to believe he could sing. Still, he sang at every small gathering, at churches, at local events, until someone recorded him on a phone and encouraged him to audition. It was a leap of faith. With little money and no assurance of success, his mother borrowed what she could to send him to the city. That moment on stage was not just about him, it was about every sacrifice, every tear his mother had shed, every prayer whispered in the dark. As he sang the final note, the hall erupted in tears and applause. The audience rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, some shouting his name. The judges, unable to hold back their emotions, stood too. One judge spoke through tears, "You have given us a gift far greater than a performance. You reminded us what it means to feel, to hope, to dream. Your voice is a miracle." Another judge pressed the golden buzzer, and confetti showered down as the boy fell to his knees, overwhelmed, his hands covering his face. His mother, watching from the sidelines, wept uncontrollably. The boy had not just sung, he had changed his life forever. But his journey did not end there. Fame and recognition came quickly, but he did not forget his roots. With the opportunities that followed, he returned to his village, helping rebuild homes, buying food for families who lived as he once did, and making sure his siblings never went hungry again. He sang in hospitals, for orphans, and at benefit concerts, using his voice to heal and inspire. He carried his father's memory with him, whispering a prayer before every performance, knowing that somewhere beyond the sea, his father was listening. His story became a beacon for millions. Around the world, people who had lost hope found strength in his journey. Children from poor backgrounds saw that they too could rise, not by hiding their struggles but by embracing them. Adults who had once abandoned their dreams found courage to try again. The boy's voice did more than bring people to tears, it reminded them that the human spirit, no matter how broken, could rise, sing, and shine. In the end, the boy's life became proof of one truth: greatness does not come from wealth or privilege, but from resilience, from love, from the refusal to surrender. His voice was not just sound, it was a bridge between suffering and hope, between despair and possibility. And long after the stage lights dimmed, his story continued to echo, reminding the world that even the poorest voice can be the richest in meaning. The night before the audition, the boy and his mother had traveled to the city for the very first time. The streets were filled with lights, cars, and noise unlike anything they had known in their quiet village. The boy held his mother's hand tightly, his small backpack carrying nothing more than a change of clothes and an old notebook where he had written down the lyrics to his favorite songs. They could not afford a hotel, so they slept on a bench near the bus station. The mother stayed awake most of the night, watching over her son, silently praying he would have the strength to face tomorrow. Morning came, and they joined the long line of contestants. Many were dressed in shiny clothes, their hair styled, their confidence radiating. The boy stood quietly, his slippers dusty, his shirt faded. He overheard whispers, some dismissive, "He looks too nervous. He's just a kid," but he lowered his eyes and hummed softly to himself, reminding his heart that he wasn't here to impress with appearances. He was here to sing. When it was finally his turn, the stage lights nearly blinded him. For a moment, fear froze him in place. He thought of running off, of giving up. But then he remembered his younger sister's voice the night before he left. "Kuya," she had whispered, "sing for us. Sing for Papa. Show them what you do for us every night." Those words gave him courage. He took a deep breath, and the music began. His first note trembled, but instead of breaking, it grew stronger, richer. By the second line, his voice carried across the hall like a wave of emotion, pulling everyone into his story. He wasn't just singing words, he was singing the sound of hunger, of dreams, of love for a family that had nothing but hope. One by one, the audience members wiped their tears. Even the toughest judge, who rarely showed emotion, had glassy eyes. The song carried them to a world far away, to a small village where a boy sang to his siblings by candlelight, where a mother worked tirelessly just to see her children smile, where a family that had so little still held on to love. By the time he reached the final chorus, the hall had become a sea of tears. The last note lingered in the air like a prayer, then faded into silence. For a few moments, nobody clapped. Nobody moved. They were all still trapped in the beauty of what they had just heard. Then, suddenly, the entire audience rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, crying. The judges, overcome with emotion, stood as well. One judge leaned into the microphone and said, "You didn't just sing. You gave us your soul." The golden buzzer was pressed, and confetti rained down. The boy collapsed onto his knees, his face in his hands. His mother rushed from the sidelines, embracing him tightly as the world around them cheered. It was more than a victory, it was a miracle. For the first time in their lives, the world had seen them, heard them, felt them. But success did not come without challenges. After the audition went viral, the boy faced pressure he had never imagined. Suddenly, he was thrust into a world of fame, interviews, and opportunities. Yet, at home, his family still lived in poverty. He struggled to balance the expectations of the public with the responsibility of supporting his loved ones. Some people criticized him, saying he was too young, too inexperienced. Others tried to take advantage of his newfound fame. There were moments of doubt, nights when he sat alone wondering if he was truly good enough. But every time despair crept in, he remembered the faces of his siblings, their smiles when they heard him sing. He remembered his mother's sacrifices, his father's voice echoing in memory. Those thoughts kept him strong. As the competition continued, he sang not only to win but to inspire. With every performance, he carried his story to the world, reminding everyone that greatness can rise from the humblest of places. When he finally reached the grand stage, he chose to dedicate his final song to his father. Standing under the bright lights, he whispered into the microphone, "Papa, this is for you." His performance brought the entire stadium to tears once again, and though he did not win the competition, he won something far greater, the love and respect of millions. In the years that followed, the boy's life transformed. He recorded songs, traveled abroad, and used his earnings to rebuild his family's life. He built a small but sturdy home for his mother and siblings, ensuring they never had to go hungry again. He started a foundation to help poor children with musical talent, giving them the chance he once thought he would never have. Yet despite his success, he remained humble. He often returned to his village, singing in the small church where he had first discovered his gift. He would walk along the shore where his father had once fished, singing softly to the sea, as though speaking to the man he missed so dearly. And every time he sang, people listened, not just to his voice, but to his story, his courage, his heart. His journey became more than music. It became a message that no matter how poor, how broken, or how forgotten one may feel, the human spirit has the power to rise, to shine, and to move the world. His voice did not just bring people to tears, it gave them hope. And so, the poor Filipino boy who once sang to ease his family's hunger grew into a symbol of resilience for millions. His story taught the world that even in the darkest nights, a single voice can light the way, and that sometimes, the smallest, weakest voices carry the strongest, most unforgettable songs. Message. This story reminds us that true greatness doesn't come from riches or privilege, but from resilience, love, and the courage to dream even in the darkest times. That boy's voice was more than music, it was hope. It was proof that even the smallest voice can touch millions of hearts and change lives forever.